Hi.
Hello.
Welcome back to Philosophising. Sorry we were away for a little bit. But we came back hopefully with something light and happy. I thought it was light and happy. I think I was
I mean, it
scrolling
has rat
on
poison in it, so I don't
it
know.
does have rat poison and human experimentation and exploitation and like colonization in it. I
Wait,
didn't
why did
realize it
you
was
think this was light and happy?
well, because it was such like it's just like,
It
oh,
was so
here's like
weird. Yeah,
yeah, in my mind I thought it would be a light topic. Did we change the title of
we
the
updated it.
episode?
Yeah,
Okay, we did update it. Okay, so y'all know what we're talking about. But for those who are here for the first time, we're Philosophising. I'm Ruby,
I'm Nathan.
and we philosophize about science. And this week we wanted to talk about marathons. I genuinely thought this would be like a quite light and fun topic because I was like, this is a cool like niche that humans have. Like we can run marathons and not die. And then we were like, okay, let's do a whole episode about the marathon. And I like Googled why it was called a marathon. and and it's literally some dude ran 26 miles and then keeled over and died from the
did you
Battle of Marathon to Athens. And then
did
they were
you
like,
see
like
did you see the tweet that was like the history of marathons is kind of messed up? Like this guy ran 26 miles and died. And so to flex on him, we run 26 miles and not die.
yeah. So I guess like the short history of it. So the dude, his name was Philip. Oh gosh, this is a Greek name with a bunch of P's. Philippides. So during the Battle of Marathon, between the Persian and Greek
Uh-huh.
uh armies, he was a courier, so his job was actually to run information from place to place, and he had just ran like 150 miles like the day before. And then it was just like, I guess he was really tired, and then he also had to additionally run because he saw like the ships coming, and he was like, oh shoot, I
Uh-huh.
need to like give this new message. And so he additionally ran another 26 miles and 385 yards in addition to the 150 miles he had just run the day before. So he was clearly very exhausted after running that much. But he was a professional runner. Like his job was professional running.
Was to run. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So he ran from the battlefield to Athens to declare that the Greeks had actually won over Persia um and get the news across. Um, and then there was like the most famous Olympic marathon, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds fun. Like this is like one of
Uh-huh.
the first Olympic games. Like let me read up about this. And so okay, so like backstory, this the most famous marathon, I guess, infamous marathon happened in the first US Olympics. The first time the US hosted the Olympics. And like just 4 years before that in like 1900s it was held in Paris, and like this is like the second like official games, and they had, it coincided with the Paris exhibition, and it was really kind of a shit show because the exhibition overshadowed the Olympics, and like they were like people couldn't figure out which one was which, and it was a hot mess. And so in 1904 they're like, let's not do that and put it in a different place. So 4 years later they the Chicago won the rights too. They won the Olympic bid, and so it was really exciting because it was like the first. I mean, it was the third of new Olympics, and it was going to be in the U.S. So it was going to be really great. And then somewhere in the middle of this planning, like exactly a year before, like February before the summer, we were supposed to be Olympics in Chicago. The organizers were like, you know what would be really great? In St. Louis, Missouri, there is a U.S. Exhibition. Let's just do the exact same thing that totally did not work in France, where we just intermingled the Olympics and the
With the
exhibition together,
exhibition. Uh-huh.
and they did it again. So they, once again, Epic failed. It had like the lowest turnout. Even like Pierre Copatin, who's like the dude that like came up with Olympics, he like rage quit and was like, I don't want any part of this US Olympics. And so they moved it to St. Louis to coincide with the exhibition. So of course, it was once again confused. People didn't know if they're going to an Olympic event or if they're going to the exhibition. And the organizers actually did these like crazy, bizarre things where they made crossovers. So they had anthropology days where they had exhibitions of like the native peoples from around the world and had them like duke it out in like exhibition/Olympic events where they would like fight each other. Or like it was not great.
It
It
was
was just
just like let's combine these. That this seems like a very weird Olympics. Yeah.
it was a very weird Olympics. And also simultaneously, like not related to Olympics, but also probably contributed to the low turnout was that the Russo-Japanese War was happening simultaneously. So like a good portion of the world was like
At
physically just like
war.
fighting at war. And I think it was like 5-1 was like Americans. So basically, it was just like Canadians, Americans, and like 12 countries showed up to to the Olympics. And the majority of the athletes were American. And so okay, so now like that sets the stage for like the
This
mess.
this ill-fated marathon that involves rats.
Yeah,
is-
the ill-fated marathon. I will put links to like where this information's from, but I kind of just globbed them together from like multiple podcasts and reading like the website references, the reference list. But I thought I here's a description that someone had made. Where I put it here. It was poorly attended by both spectators and athletes. Let me find I don't know where it went. I thought I had put it in the Google on the drive on the Google Doc, but okay, so I don't have the exact numbers of how many people actually showed up, but they started with like 28 runners. Only 14 of them made it through. It was like the worst um route ever. Like people someone they had like cars. It was an open course, so like people had to dodge cars and carts. One like some people got chased by dogs like for a full mile off course. They withheld water because they wanted to understand what happens if people were extremely dehydrated and trying to
This was
exert.
like a medical experiment.
Yeah, there was straight up a medical like human experimentation happening. There were people that were actually really similar to like this Greek messenger were actually runners for a living. Like not for a living, they were like soldiers that came for the exhibition like as part of like a minority group through like at the exhibition, and they're like, oh yeah, as a side gig I will also like no I enjoy running because my job is couriering things, so like put me in. And they showed up with like no shoes and they're just like, yeah, we're used to running like this. Like one of the no shoe runners got chased by a dog off by a mile course. Someone else showed up and he had all his money stolen en route, and he gambled all, I guess either gambled his money or was not supported by his government, so he showed up in like full business suit attire, and someone felt bad for him because it was 90 degrees heat and they like cut off the bottom half of his pants. So it's like, all right, you have shorts now, good luck. um One dude, so they were running and they were not allowed water, and so they saw these vendors selling fruits, and so he like stole peaches and just like ate fruit,
them
like
for
stole
water.
the fruit and like ran off with it and ran away eating it. And then someone else, oh no, that same person that stole the peaches also ran into a fruit orchard, ate a bad apple, and got food poisoning and felt so ill he took a nap for an hour.
And
And
this
he
is
was,
like the guy who would have won
yeah,
at
this is the guy
that
that would
like
have won.
and now.
Um, it was just like completely bonkers, and like the the worst one was this other person straight up got off course, got in a car, got a lift to the end, and won the race until he was called out, and he jokingly said, I was awarded as a joke." Like it was
Uh-huh.
bonkers. It was such a bonkers thing, and I was like,
It's
how did the Olympics survive this? Like
I was
how
gonna say, did they fix like was the next year's or the next Olympics marathon more orderly?
That is a great question, and I am googling
This
the
would be like the
1908
1908. Yeah.
Olympics. Yeah. Um and looking up at like what happened at that marathon. Um it happened in London. Yeah, maybe, I mean, maybe the British, got their shit together. Um
According to this page from like Athletics Weekly. Oh wait, someone got heat stroke. But
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the people that inhaled so much dust from the cars that were driving next to the route, that someone had inhaled so much dust in their lungs that they had to go to the hospital, and they were like minutes from dying. Like they had
oh
a
wow.
hemorrhage. Yeah, it was really bad. I think 14 people made it to the end of the race. Like, I'm gonna find the like statistics on how ridiculous the ending of this is. I had it I had a couple links pulled up. Um yeah, they called it strange, but I think this was like a complete whack Olympics. Let's see how many people showed up. Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't even start with the strychnine guy. So the guy that actually ended up winning had trainers with him, literally supporting him, keeping him upright. And they fed him egg whites and strychnine. And so strychnine in small amounts apparently enhances your performance.
Yeah, I
And
was
this was
gonna ask
actually
like this is
the
considered
first, yeah, I was gonna say this is the first time there was like doping at an Olympics. Was this dude at the
man, this
and so yeah, 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 and he, like, yeah, they fed him egg whites and strychnine, and, like, I guess the egg whites had enough water in it to keep this guy going because he wasn't allowed water. Um, yeah,
and
like,
so
some of the
strychnine, what does it do?
that is a great question, and I was gonna ask you
Oh,
exactly
it's
how it
an
did it.
antagonist of glycine and acetylcholine receptors. So I guess it increases your muscle tone and it like makes your
Yeah, I
muscles
can see that.
contract harder. Yeah.
A muscle.
So that's like it's basically the same thing as nerve gas, but I guess if you take small doses of it, that can improve
Yeah.
your metabolism.
Oof. Yeah. So it can also, I mean, it causes spasms.
Mhm. Which like
So
yeah, I don't know how that would be beneficial, but okay. Yeah.
yeah. Oh no, but he was so out of it after running this marathon. He like started hallucinating and thought he was just at the beginning of the race at like mile 5, and
Oh
was like, I
wow.
gotta run 20 more miles. And he was just lay there moving his legs. Like this poor man. Um
Like imagine watching that in the Olympics.
yeah.
Like imagine like if that was like in a televised Olympics, just like all this stuff. Um,
Like no one was, yeah, also like no one was watching. Like how did this like craziness like happen again? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how did they recover from this?
yeah, it is. So apparently the 1908 one was pretty normal, and like people were actually very excited about it. And like one guy definitely cheated because like the officials helped him across the finish line, but apparently it was like a lot less remarkable. Um,
Yeah, maybe this is one of those cases
anyway,
where unremarkable is good.
yeah,
Um,
I think I was gonna mention though, like there are some things that have like persisted. So this issue of people doing the marathon in a car has actually been like a persistent thing in marathons. Um and like part of it is like so like marathon courses are long enough that like there's a lot of spots that you can cheat. Um, but I was looking at this one case. So there was this lady called Rosie Ruiz, um, and she got a really good time in the Boston Marathon. Um, and it turned out that like she didn't actually run the marathon. She just kind of like popped out near the finish line and then ran across the finish line basically.
Wow. Did she take the
Yeah.
metro?
I don't think so, but there was one in I believe in Mexico City. There was someone who did that. Like she just like I think so. I think Rosie was just like standing near the finish line, and kind of popped out. But this other person did take the metro on their marathon. Like they just got on the subway and then they got busted because people saw them on the subway.
Like in their costume, in their
Yeah.
like running gear.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the way they I guess like fix that is that now like all the bibs have like chips in them, and when you there's like markers throughout the course, and when you run through them they gives you a timestamp, and it's a lot harder to cheat in that way now.
Yeah.
um I'm not sure if it's completely impossible. Like I wonder if like you co-ran it with someone and like relayed it.
Yeah. I mean, so that happens. So people will give their bib to other people and do a relay thing. Um.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Um.
like, they do relays intentionally too, right? Like, not for marathons, but for, like, triathlons, for example. I participated in a triathlon relay where, like, different people did the swimming part and then the running and then the cycling, like, you would swap
Uh-huh.
out. So you would just hand off the chip, like, that literally was what we
Yeah.
did. We had,
Oh
like
yeah.
a
Yeah.
thingy, like a strap. Like, we would Velcro it off and then hand it off to your it was like pass the torch, and then you, like, kept going. I imagine that you could probably do something or like if I were to try and cheat in the marathon.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That you could relay it. Yeah.
yeah. It's just not it's not particularly sportsmanlike to cheat.
No.
Like, what would be the purpose of this? Like, what would you get out of it?
I guess I mean often you get prizes, although like I think they usually got found out. So like Rosie Ruiz got found out just because like no one could actually like they like asked people. It's like no one remembered her seeing her like actually on the trail, and like she should have been like way out in front because like
Yeah,
she
yeah.
ran it so unreasonably fast, and like no one recalled that. So then they were just like, this is weird, and that triggered an investigation. Yeah, I think
That would do it.
also so yeah, I'm trying to think about how do people cheat at marathons. Yeah, I think they. I mean, so the other thing that you can do is like also because the courses are so large, sometimes people will just kind of like cut corners. Like if the course goes like
Like
that,
do a loop.
they'll just go straight through it. Um, Interestingly, actually, it's possible to run a lot more than 26.2 miles in a marathon. Also, because that refers to the shortest path that you could legally take, which actually people really don't do when they're running. Like practically speaking, you'll probably run like 27 miles or something.
Oh, because
Um,
you're like running on the edges. Like
right.
just the
So
difference between one edge
if
and the other.
it's 26.2 miles if you followed the exact mathematically optimal path, like on the street. Um,
Ah.
So there is a more legitimate version of this, is what I'm saying, which is just that you try to optimize your path like within the legal course.
Oh, that's fascinating. So the only thing I know about, like, before we start studying this or like looking it up for the stream, was that ultra marathons are one of the like few places where there's so few ultra marathon runners that they just combine the categories like men and women, and it's
Just people.
actually
Yeah.
women do really good. Yeah, like I was surprised how well like women do in these sports. It's kind of um like you forget that it's not always like male dominated in all sports, just like blanket statement. It's just like here's this really bizarre thing that humans can do, also really extreme version of it, and oh yeah, by the way, females can do it better. And it's just like her running just loads of miles continuously at like a not super fast speed, but just
Yeah.
continuous movement. Um,
I'm kind of not
bizarre.
surprised because it usually seems like running is like a sport that doesn't have very big sex differences in it.
Mm, I would say like shorter distances, like just the bursting power and
That's true. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like sprints, like you'll never
I guess.
like the times that women's like sprinting hits will
Yeah,
never reach what like the men's sprinting time was.
yeah. I guess I'm thinking of like long distance races. Like,
Yeah, yeah, but in
yeah,
the long distance running and especially ultra marathons, like this is one of those places where
just don't really see it much
yeah,
difference. Yeah.
those fast twitch muscles, those huge frames not helping.
If anything is possibly a detriment, I guess, because like you have like if you have a bigger frame, you'll have like less efficient heat dispersion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the like ultra marathons and I think the only other sport that comes to mind is like ski jumping. Like those are two places where
Ah,
like just like the female body and shape and size is actually it's more beneficial to be a woman.
mhm.
Um anyway, back to the marathon. We wanted to talk about the
Yeah.
science of marathon.
Although,
Marathons
okay,
or rather you
I do
wanted
have
to
like I do like I was wondering about something with that though because I was reading this interesting thing about so it was trying people were trying to figure out why like like why the top chess players in the world are all men and like so the question people are kind of like okay that this doesn't make any sense like why are men better at chess and it comes down to just there's a lot more male chess players therefore kind of like by random chance the average like the very top one is much more likely to be a guy and in fact kind of like when you just even select the top like 5% of chess players, like you're gonna get mostly guys. Anyway, I wonder if that's true of any sports too. Like I wonder if there's sports where it seems like kind of like there's a very strong sex effect, but it's just because there's more men who do it.
I was gonna say I think
Especially
there's
at like
the
professional
flips.
level.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
there's the opposite. You can clearly see the opposite version of that.
Mhm.
Um, like you can probably say that there's more like better female gymnasts, at least
Mhm.
in our country, and it really matches
Yeah.
because of how many parents stick their kid in gymnastics.
Right.
Like I feel like the ratio is not equal between the boys and the girls
Yeah.
that gets you know what I mean when
Yeah.
they're like 5 year olds like they're not being sent to gymnastics
Yeah.
class.
If it's a thing with like competitive selection, then just kind of like the more people you have to compete against, like the better absolutely like the top 5% is gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, there is probably, an aspect of talent as well, and it's just a matter of rolling through enough humans to find the talented ones. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a pool. It's a pool. Eh,
Anyway, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, that was just a random thing that occurred to me when you were talking about that. But yeah, so since we mentioned marathon cheating in our stream title, um, we were talking about like various ways that people cheat at marathon. Oh, one of the other weird ones that's not really cheating, but it's kind of cheating is people will run in a marathon that they have not registered for. Like they just show up and kind of like make their own bib and then run on the course. And it's like it's
oh,
up.
I have a favorite story about this actually. So the Boston Marathon used to not let women run. Um, and one of the first women to run, um, just registered with like I think initials, and she just like kept running. And once the organizers realized that there was a woman running the course and doing fairly well, this is actually a really cool sportsmanship story. Like the men around her were like, "Let her run," and they like protected her from the people trying to extract her from the race. So
Wow.
they just
So
kept
people were trying
buffering
to
her.
grab her.
Yeah, they were trying to like grab her, and the other runners are like, "What the fuck? Let her run." And so then she like did really well, and so she became like, the first person to run this race. Let me actually find her name. Um, First woman to run the Boston Marathon. I guess like now that we live in Boston, we should actually pay more attention when the
To see
marathon happened.
the marathon. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, so the first one was like an unofficial runner. Yeah, and not an official. Her name was Bobby. I think. Let's see. Yeah, so she did not run a official race number. Um, but she hid in the bushes near the start until the race began. And she didn't identify herself as female on the race application. And well, some people were like another woman, Catherine Schwitzer, was issued a bib number with her like initials. And they were they tried to take her out of the race. Um oh yeah. Wait, okay, so Victory in the Falling Spring Maker the first. Yeah. So basically a bunch of women ran the race and a bunch of them actually finished it. Like 8 women
Like,
finished it.
yeah.
And then
And
they're
then
like, I guess we have to let them run
they
now.
start letting women in. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, women are doing it. So
Yeah, pretty much like women are just like, yeah, we want to run this race too. And so they literally hid in the bushes, registered with ambiguous names, and got bibs and just ran. And they didn't have RFIPs. I just love that someone hid in a bush near the start line.
I like it's very funny to read it when it's like described in a history book. It's just like, ah, yeah, she hid in a bush, and then until the race began.
Yeah.
Yeah, I yeah. So that is one way to. I feel like that's not even really cheating at a marathon, but anyway, like you're still running it. But anyway, yeah. Um, Another arguably marathon. So I think this is a controversial marathon thing, but I think it's interesting because it gets into some of the physiology and technology of stuff. But so there's this guy, Eliud Kipchoge, who currently holds the world record for the fastest marathon, which was 1 hour 59 minutes and 40 seconds. And yeah,
Whoa.
so you're like, well, yeah. So for anyone who's not like familiar with this, for a long time it was thought to be just like completely physiologically impossible to run a marathon in under 2 hours. Until 2019 when he did this. Um,
Oh my god.
but I,
Yeah, I just looked at it. He did it in
but I
Vienna.
think, yeah. I think what is really interesting about this though is so that like all the stuff that went into this. Um, so like Ruby mentioned, so he was running in Vienna, which they picked in part because it was at sea level. They actually waited for, so this was basically a promo from Nike. And so they actually waited, they had multiple opportunities. So it wasn't a race. It was just like they had him run the distance. They waited until kind of like the temperature and the humidity was ideal. He had a bunch of people kind of flanking him who swapped out at different parts in the race.
Oh,
And
to like simulate like the speed that he would need to run.
no, it was actually so that he could draft off of them. So it was for aerodynamics.
Oh.
And so you can see kind of what's going on here is so kind of he's the guy in the white shirt in the middle, and they have everyone is kind of running in this aerodynamic formation around him for efficiency. And actually, this car is what is doing the pacing. So the car was driven at exactly the target pace, and it projected these lasers on the ground to tell everyone where they were supposed to be.
Like House to Run.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So it was like you would run and you would stay on the dot. And
That is
so you can
insane. Okay, for context, he ran 4.5 minute miles, basically.
Mhm.
The entire way.
Yeah. But like to me, I think kind of the most insane thing is like the amount of like effort and planning and stuff that went into pulling this off. Like, and I don't know. I mean, he technically got the record. Like I don't know how to feel about the fact that he was only able to do it with this like group of people manipulating the air pressure around him. Like that seems like
Okay, to be fair, even with those manipulations, I bet if he was on a treadmill in a room with like no, do you know what I mean? I think he could do it on a treadmill in a gym.
oh I don't think so.
You
Like,
don't think so? You don't think
no.
there's no additional wind or draft or like side things indoors. Everything's completely controlled. It's completely flat. It's like, do you know what I mean?
I
Like,
don't
don't
know.
people
I
do
guess
better
maybe.
at home training than they do on the real course?
It varies. I think like so the big thing about treadmills is that there's no wind resistance, which might
Yeah.
be why they couldn't do it. Like maybe that just doesn't count, I guess. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I assume the reason they didn't do it on a treadmill was because like that it wouldn't have worked as well as the thing they did. But that is a good point that um, it
Yeah.
does give you more control over stuff. I'm
Yeah.
guessing it
Like,
probably just doesn't count for the record then. Yeah.
yeah. Like, I feel like they just had to go outside and like simulate an indoor treadmill situation, like a tunnel of air. Do you know what I mean? Like, he
Yeah.
could easily just also run on a treadmill with like a fan
Yeah.
blowing on him. Like, that
But
is the equivalent.
I guess the point that I'm making is like running on a treadmill is kind of artificial too. Like you don't have any air resistance.
Yeah.
So like it's I can see why people are saying like that doesn't count. Um I don't
Yeah.
know. So I think the other interesting things that he had is because it was sponsored by Nike. He was wearing these special Nike shoes that have they're extremely bouncy, and then they have like a carbon fiber plate in them. And the idea is that they actually improve kind of your running efficiency by storing some energy and releasing it. And there's actually been quite a bit of research now showing that like just wearing these shoes can make you about 4% faster in these long races, which is quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have noticed that like the top scores at like every Olympics, almost every year there's world records and new Olympic records, right? Like it's constantly happening, and it's definitely as we like tune in on like the most optimal equipment.
Uh-huh.
At some point, do you think it's gonna plateau and then we're really reached? This is like the human potential. Like obviously the jump from like 1904 Olympics time to like 2 hour Olympics is bonkers. That's a huge difference. But I don't think we're gonna push lower than the 2 hour mark that much. Do you know what I mean? I don't think people are gonna run in less than 4 minutes.
I guess to me, I wonder what do you consider allowed, right? Like I think like so like obviously like doping probably won't be allowed, but like I can imagine someone saying like someone makes say some running gear that can store energy in a lithium battery and then like release it to help you or something like
Oh, that's true. Like trampoline shoes with extra
right
extra
yeah
kicks.
or like or like some sort of nerve stimulator that like reduces your fatigue levels or something. Like I feel like the question isn't like, I feel like before we hit the part of like what is actually technologically possible, it's going to be like, what do we want to allow?
Yeah, surprisingly, that's actually the argument for why paraplegic, not even paraplegic, just what's it called? The Olympics for
Paralympics.
um yeah, the Paralympics, like are they don't cross over even though athletes can do like imagine an amputee runner with like that who is missing part of their foot and they have like a bionic foot.
Mhm.
And like that's the reason they're not allowed to run in a regular race in another competition because they're like worried that the technology could give them an unfair
Yeah.
advantage.
Uh-huh.
Um I don't know how I feel about that. I was just like, maybe we just let them all run. And eventually everyone will be wearing these like cool shoes.
Mhm.
Um and like so what if the bionic foot person wins? Like
Yeah.
they have to live with the bionic foot for their whole lives. Let them have it.
There is, so apparently there is a group of people doing this. So there's this organization called Enhanced Games, which is basically is trying to take that approach, and they're trying to say like, okay, we're going to have sports competitions that are like, just do whatever you want to yourself and then go compete. Weirdly, it's founded by
Yeah.
Peter Thiel. Yeah,
Oh, that's
it's
surprising.
really strange. Yeah,
I was gonna say, have you watched Paralympic Games? I
I
actually
have not.
really enjoy watching them because you can see the rules that they made because everyone has different disabilities. So they actually make them, I guess, like as equal as possible. And it makes for really interesting games. Like I watched like Paralympic volleyball recently, and everyone's like scooting on the floor regardless of like if you had one
Like
like if
whether,
you're missing
yeah.
a single limb or both limbs or like partial below the knee, like whatever, everyone is sat on the floor. It is such an interesting game to watch. Like they play in it. I was just like, this should just be the games. We should. It was so inspiring. Like, significant. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not the biggest volleyball fan, but I could watch Paralympic volleyball. Like I will watch every single game. Um,
It's
over
more,
like
do you feel like it's more interesting to watch, or?
oh yeah, absolutely. Because like watching the regular Olympics volleyball is just like watching volleyball at school,
I think
like
it
at a
just
school
like
competition.
seems, yeah,
Yeah,
seems more
it wasn't
interesting.
novel, and yeah, and I was just like, "Yep, they're doing the same moves again, and they're doing the same moves again." It was not as fun. And I was like, It should be televised better. It just doesn't have as much news coverage as all the other. Although most Olympics are don't actually get as much coverage.
Yeah, that much coverage. Yeah, there's a lot of sports you never really see, but on
Yeah,
TV.
they'll just like skip to the part where they're like, "Yep, these countries won the medal." Here's their faces. And I'm like, well, I didn't get to see them like shoot whatever or um anyway, wait, I want
Yeah,
to hear
so
about
like,
these enhanced games. Like what is the
oh
concept?
yeah,
Like what kinds of enhancements are they allowed?
like mostly drugs, I think. But yeah, here I
Okay.
can pull up the safer sports, the movement. Um, hmm. So this is and like, the thing that I'm not sure about is like, I can't tell like, and I think no one is quite sure like if this is just like an elaborate practical joke, but kind of like, or like a trolling thing. But so it was backed by the world's top venture capitalists. They're the in Olympics of the future. 44% of athletes already use performance enhancements, and so
Wait, why does it make it safer? I feel like this is like a recipe for like disaster.
um, yeah, and so for example, they say like enhanced acknowledges that science has always played a central role in sports. Um, there's this thing about so I think it's an interesting idea. I feel weird about like the founders of it. Like there's some weird like political stuff going on with it, but it's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Anyway,
I
that
mean,
was
some of those science statements are clearly also wrong. So
really the ones about steroids.
yeah, like it does have long-term health effects. We,
So, yeah. So steroids always have severe.
I mean, okay, as a biologist, we never say always. So
Yeah.
like if you're going to take the word always out of there, that statement is not wrong anymore. It's just, do you know what I mean? It's like it doesn't
Yeah.
always do it. Sure, it doesn't always.
But like these are weird. Like, okay, man, the steroids are bad for your health. According to a number of studies, they have positive health effect to muscle mass, strength, and endurance, and reduces the risk of injury and fatigue. I mean, like that seems very selective because it's not talking about like the risks of heart disease and like other stuff.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Like this one is weird. Like steroids cause tumors, and it talks about this one kind of tumor.
yeah,
Anyway, yeah, okay, that does seem a bit sketch. Um, but I think that's
yeah.
a good segue into one of the other things that I wanted to talk about, which is kind of the physiology of long distance running and kind of like how people do improve their performance. Um, so I think one one slightly disturbing fact that I learned when I was researching this is that usually when people finish a marathon, they actually and what they did was they actually had them finish the marathon and then immediately go do medical tests. And what you actually see is you actually see some sign when people finish a marathon, you see some signs of like heart damage, basically. So kind of if you do an ultrasound, the heart ventricles get really overextended. So kind of they are dilated and kind of too large, and you also see some factors in the blood called like troponin, which are typically markers of heart damage. And like the good thing is this seems to be like a very short-term thing. Like it doesn't seem to be a permanent damage, but it seems to really be more of a state of like extreme fatigue. But I think like it's pretty striking just like how dramatic these like physiological changes that you see like when people finish the marathon are.
I didn't realize that your heart like physiologically changed in like 3
Yeah.
hours.
And it seems to be an effect of kind of
Like overstressing it.
over and specifically having excessive blood volume. So to meet
Oh.
the for an extended period of time. So to meet the demands of running, kind of your heart will try and pump larger volumes of blood, and that can kind of stretch and tear the heart muscles. There's also some evidence that it can cause problems if you do it chronically, like if you run like a whole bunch of marathons back to back. That seems to have some health risks associated with it. But actually, marathon running is usually very healthy. Like
Yeah.
that's
What
that's
happens
kind of
to those tears? Like is it like a permanent thing? Does it leave
no,
scarring?
not unless you're doing like multiple marathons in a short period of time. Other than it just heals, I think.
Oh,
Yep.
that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that our hearts can do that.
And by tears, so these are not like tears that are like blood is going to leak out through them. Like
No,
not like
yeah.
that, right? This is like
Muscles, like
tears in the muscle fibers. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's similar to what you get just in other muscles from exercise.
Yeah.
But
It's like when you're sore, like you
yeah.
made a bunch of micro tears, like
Yeah.
that.
I guess your
That.
heart becomes sore. Um
Oh.
Also, incidentally, like one of the weird side effects that I had when I did marathons was that like after you run, like sometimes I can only assume that something about like the muscles or the nerves just gets kind of overstressed, and like you will for like a day afterwards have these periods of time where you just kind of like completely lose all your muscle tone in your legs. So you're trying to walk, and then you'll just like like fall over.
I have never experienced that. That is
It's
so
really
scary to
weird.
me.
Yeah, yeah. And like it goes away very quickly. So it's not alarming. But like honestly, like you learn many weird things that your physiology can do.
It sounds like you've like exhausted all of like ATP and like a bunch of cells, and then they're like,
Yeah.
we need to regenerate these now.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm also confused because it doesn't happen like it only happens like the day after the marathon too.
Yeah.
Um so it's not like oh
Oh
also
wow.
yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of like I think overall they're really physiologically like marathon running is really physiologically interesting. It's the other interesting thing that happens is that you basically use up all the glucose in your body during a marathon. Um,
Yeah.
so people will talk about kind of like hitting the wall where kind of you get to about 24 miles and you just feel like you can't do that. And that's basically what happens when your body has depleted all of its sugar reserves.
Oh, so like it actually is really stressful. For some
Uh-huh.
reason, as a non-marathon runner, I like learned about how like this was like the human's niche, and this is something we could do without dying. I didn't realize like we couldn't do it repetitively. Like it's still a
Yeah,
very stressful event, and it's
yeah,
like once in
right.
a while thing. It's not like all the time.
Yeah. Which is interesting because you see that in training too. Like so with races that are marathon distance or longer, you don't train for them by running that distance because to do that more than like once in a while would actually just make you sick. Like it would make you worse. So
Uh,
the physio so when you're training for a marathon, what you'll typically do is you'll typically only go up to like 22 to 24 miles at absolute maximum. And then you'll do that like once. And then you will basically stop running any significant distance for like the next like 4 or so weeks before the marathon. And that's just you'll run a little bit, but you'll only be doing like no more than 12 miles or so. Towards the end, like no more than like 2 miles. And the idea is that like you get kind of you're giving your body some time to recover for the actual marathon.
or to like prepare itself for for an assault.
Right, exactly. Like you could not like just like like even very trained people cannot do that repetitively, like in the kind like the way that you would in training.
Yeah,
I
that
think
kind of makes sense.
yeah, and it's so the interesting challenge then that is like okay, so how do you train to run like 26 miles without actually doing it? And so what marathon training plans are designed to do is they're designed to do like you run 12 miles this day and then 14 miles the next day basically. And the idea is that some of the stresses of training kind of persist over a couple of days. So the idea is that by doing this kind of split across multiple days, you can still kind of be preparing your body to handle that much distance, but not getting the really acute effects that would make you like overtrained and just sick and not able to run the marathon.
Oh, I did learning so many things about how to
Yeah.
train for a marathon. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like a whole field of. I mean, there's a lot of physiologists who study just this. So,
Yeah.
and it is
Well, I'm
pretty
thinking
cool. Yeah.
so I was thinking about the 1904 Olympics actually. I was thinking about the two runners that were in the military and they were actually couriers and like why we still used human couriers. And if you think about like lands that is really undeveloped, like for example, if I told you to like go from one side of um like a national park to another and don't use any trails.
Mhm.
Like don't use any marked trails. Like you can use deer trails. I think a human is actually the best and most efficient way to get through that. besides
Mhm.
flying, right?
Yeah,
Like besides flying a drone, and you have to like get a physical thing from point A to point B. I think
it's just putting it on a person. Yeah.
yeah, you put it on a person because they can do multi-terrains. They could do mud, they can do stream crossings, they can do like walk between trees, they can
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
boulder, like they can do a whole bunch of things. Like not the fastest, but they're most versatile.
Right.
And that's
And
what like the 1904 Olympics
right.
was. There was dust storms and cars and dogs. Do you know what I mean? And like
and rotten
street vendors.
apples.
Yeah. Like they were actually the most efficient way to get from that place to the other place, besides getting on a vehicle. Um
Yeah, and like when you think about even like when you think about like even modern militaries, right? Like most like which is also a similar thing. It's like okay, you are moving guns and ammo across a landscape, and it's like most of that, at least like when you're in the general location, is just like people walking.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure I read that we can outwalk a dog and outwalk horses and
Yep.
like any many of our companion animals we can outwalk, including camels, which I was very surprised. I was
Wow.
like, a camel can outwalk a human. Like I would bet on a camel.
Like in a like is this in the camel's like natural habitat or like where is this?
Oh, just a continuous distance in movement.
Oh, but I'm
Yeah.
like, is it like in a desert or in a
Oh, that's a great question. I have no idea. I think
temperate
I was
area
just going by
or
mileage. But yeah, perhaps in the desert, a camel might win on like sand dunes.
yeah,
I bet on a camel.
yeah. But I don't know. So like I mean, okay, I do think this is a really cool evolutionary thing that relates to marathons, which are like humans are pretty much the only animal that could actually run a marathon. Like
That's true.
horses maybe. Like but it would be pretty hard and questionable for them actually.
Yeah, to
Um
run the entire distance. That's true.
yeah.
Um, and
Um
we're just efficient at using our
right.
energy, and also like the heat dispersion thing. I think m- that's actually one of the major. If you
Yeah.
look at if you look at the organization of our brain, we have this major sagittal sinus that just goes down the center over our head, and its like main job is to like
Cool
move
brain.
fluids. Yeah.
Oh. Is that like with other animals, is that kind of like the limitation for when they start overheating from exercise is like the temperature of the brain?
Yeah, I mean, core temperature too.
Mhm.
So like if you notice, like if we're just standing under the sun, our physical core isn't directly being sunned, as opposed to a quadrupedal animal, like their actual core is constantly sunned, like entire time, and there isn't like there's less. How would you say it? Volume being hit by sun at any point in time. Like
Yeah.
we're
I mean,
we're
and also
also
we
naked.
also have a lot and we have a lot more sweat glands. So we don't have hair and we have a lot more sweat glands. Like a lot of animals, especially those that have fur, really only have sweat glands on like a couple of spots. So like cats only have sweat glands on their paws. Um, I don't know if dogs have sweat glands anywhere actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're naked. We're naked and we can evaporate. Like we can sweat and let things evaporate. We're just very efficient at staying cool.
Mhm.
Heat dispersion
Yeah. Yep.
works
Yeah,
out.
I think that's probably the biggest factor actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and
yeah.
just low energy movement, like
Yeah.
just the number of calories that is expended to to do the same amount of distance as a quadrupedal being. Like we're very efficient with it, which is kind of cool. It sounds like a lame superpower until it's like practiced.
It's
Um,
basically like I do think it's it is pretty badass how humans were basically just kind of like the Terminators of the African savannah. It's just like our abilities were like that we could like just follow something forever, and we're also like very resilient and would like get any injury and it just like heals.
Yeah, that we have talked about this in the past
Yeah.
that we are like if we had switched roles with a prey animal, we are really scary. We will like just like hurt you and keep following you until you're so exhausted you die. Like that is a hunting method that
I
humans
wanted
have used.
Yeah. I think one interesting thing that is also about humans, which I think is also like relevant to the marathon, is like I think also cognition. Like I think a lot of animals like would not like run 20 miles just because they'll just be like this feels bad and we'll stop. And of course kind of like we have this very like goal oriented cognition where we can do it. And interestingly, there's a lot of research now that suggests that kind of athletic performance also really depends on the mental aspects of things. So for example, this guy that I linked to here did a whole bunch of studies on oh yeah, Christopher Ring is one of the scientists who has studied this a lot, and he found that if you make people do a task that induces a lot of mental fatigue, so just really a cognitively demanding task, and then have them exercise, kind of they get tired at the exercise much faster, and it feels like they feel like they're stopping it because they're physically tired, but it has to do with kind of like willpower and previous mental fatigue and that being depleted by doing this task before.
Oh. Huh. Like they will end their physical exercise earlier just because they were
Yeah, we can see. So let's see what they measured.
I often find there's a disconnect between my mental fatigue and my physical fatigue. Um,
Mhm.
like sometimes I'm like mentally like let's go, but my body's like nah, you need to rest.
Oh,
And
really? Yeah.
yeah, and actually vice versa. And sometimes I'm physically like feeling awesome like let's go run a marathon. I don't know about running a marathon, but like let's go on a hike, but my
Yeah.
brain is like sleepy and tired and
Pretty like I am
yeah, and
tired.
it's
Yeah.
not ready to do science.
Okay.
um yeah, I do find like and those two disconnects are useless states for me.
Just like
Like both of them are useless. Like being like brain ready and physically not ready, useless, and vice versa also, except for if I'm just trying to like survive, the latter version is useful. Like
Mhm.
physically, like let's go, brain not there, like that's a great state to be on like day 3 backpacking and just like carry your pack
Right. You
and
just like okay. Yeah. So,
do the
um,
thing, get there, set up camp, go to bed. um but like usually on the day to day, not particularly useful versions of myself, which is
Same. Yeah, I get that a bit too. I think because like I try to like have exercise routines, and I'm like, okay, I'll do this like this morning, but then just sometimes you're just physically like cannot. Yeah.
yeah. That's unfortunate. I wonder if we could train for optimal combos where we're physically and mentally alert, like to increase the
Uh-huh.
productivity time. Because like if we could do that, I if I could do that to myself, we would probably have to titrate it like perfectly for each person. Like that would make us more efficient and just better in general. Like, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. So this researcher that I mentioned, that's actually what he does. Like, so he has this concept of like brain endurance training that is trying to do that. So he does it with athletes, and the idea is to actually like train people to build up more resistance against mental fatigue so that their exercise and sports performance gets better.
Oh, great. What are these methods he uses and how can we utilize them in our daily lives? Or
Let's
does it
see.
work? Actually, before
Yeah,
we try to
let's see.
utilize it, does it
Okay, this
work?
one has full text. Um,
No. Oh yay! Open source.
Okay.
We like that.
Improves endurance and cognitive performance in road cyclists. Um, so
I'm impressed you have Elsevier access.
I got it. I mean, so I got it on ResearchGate, so I think it's just like a pirated one.
Ah, okay. Very good. I was so frustrated with Elsevier the other day.
Does MIT not have it? I don't even.
MIT does not subscribe to any Elsevier journals. I was literally trying to read a neuron paper, and one of the paper from my old lab. Like I can't read it. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well,
I mean,
yeah. I mean, did you
yeah.
find it somewhere else? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I had a PDF somewhere, but anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So in this paper, they were looking at RPE as ratings of perceived exertion. So it's like, how hard are you? Just they ask people to rate like how difficult is this physical task, and so, and then TT performance is time to exhaustion. And so so they kind of standardized kind of what these cyclists are doing, and then after people got this brain endurance training, they did better.
Apparently, they did better on the Stroop test.
Yeah.
And just the Stroop test.
Yeah. Let's see if it says what. Do you see where it says what they actually did in the bet?
I think it was that first figure where they had like the blocks and the triangles. That first figure, was it that one? Yeah. So like it was like they do a thing, they rest, and then do a different thing, and then they tested. Is that not the method?
Yeah, but I'm curious, like what was the task they did to actually build their endurance?
For laboratory sessions. TTE test. Yeah. These acronyms are not helping. Maybe you go in the method section?
So it just says the vet group performed a demanding cognitive task after each physical training session.
Huh.
So
maybe we should be like exercising and then immediately trying to work.
To improve our mental abilities. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it says here, in each session, participants performed one of 3 cognitive tasks: flanker, go, no go, AXCPT, using Soma and PT, which is just like the software.
Yeah, this is what I'm hearing is I should like run on a treadmill and then immediately read a paper regularly and try to figure out, or like try to do some writing or something.
I mean, it sounds kind of like if you're in this state of like, oh, my my body wants to do stuff, but my brain doesn't, and then you do go and do stuff like that. That seems like it's having kind of the same effect. Like it's almost like it's like it's forcing you to function in this exhausted state, so you get stronger at it.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes when I'm in this exhausted state, I do get inspired when I am talking to other people. Like even if I'm not, at the sharpest version of me. But yeah, cool. With that, actually, we are at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us. We're Philosophising. See you guys next week at Thursday at 9.
Yep. Yeah. See ya.